Hey dreamers, this is Nick Gelso, Hey dreamers, this is Nick Gelso, co-owner, CEO of CLNS Radio. Identify your goals and your dreams young. Use Joe Pardo's podcast as part of that planning process and keep on dreaming with the Dreamers podcast.
This is the Dreamers Podcast, where dreamers share their stories to inspire you. Now, join host Joe Pardo as he interviews a dreamer who's living their dreams.
Hey dreamers, I'm Joe Pardo, and today I'm talking with Ben Wolford. Was it Wolford? Wolford.
Yeah, that was exactly it. Yep.
Thank you. Who is making his dreams come true by starting an online magazine. Glad to have you on the show, Ben.
Thank you very much.
So, Ben, an online magazine, right? So why don't you get into the differences right off the bat, right? From an online magazine, differences from a blog or something to that nature.
Yeah, so what I started with Latterly Magazine is something relatively new. There's maybe only, I don't know, maybe one or two other online magazines that look and feel the same way ours does. We don't print. We don't have a printed product that we distribute to stores. Instead, we sell subscriptions. You would log into our website, and it would give you access to the website, and it would give you access to our iOS app. And we sort of do away with a lot of the traditional stuff that you would find in a magazine. Like, first of all, we don't have any ads. We don't have a lot of the fluff, the listicles that go at the beginning of the article of each issue. All we have is like the really good, juicy features in the back, and our features are all focused on international affairs, focused on foreigners. Basically, we're trying to look at the lives of people around the world and make them feel more familiar to people who, haven't necessarily been to Laos or Vietnam or places like that.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So I guess, actually, would one of your I guess quote unquote competitors be UID, Use Your Difference magazine? Tyroxin?
I thought I knew of every magazine there was, but I don't know that one. You'll have to send me a link.
I will. Tyroxin has been on the show quite a few times, and he started his own UID, which stands for Use Your Difference. And he started out with third culture kids, where people that lived in multiple cultures throughout growing up, they're of their own, they're of their own mindset and they're of their own culture, basically, because they grew up in different cultures making their own.
So like kids whose parents traveled a lot, and so they never really had like a country.
Yes. Yeah, basically. So I didn't know if maybe you knew of his publication, but I guess you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So, Ben, why don't you get into the background of how you got started with all of this?
Well, it sort of goes. I've been a journalist my whole life, or at least most of it. Went to college to be a journalist. When I got out, I worked in newspapers in Florida primarily. In 2013, my wife and I moved to New York, and we were sort of saddled with the like outrageous expense of living in Brooklyn, and we knew it wasn't going to last. Like, my wife's a lawyer, but she wasn't really enjoying her work. We wanted to go abroad, so we basically we had a lease. We were only like 3 months into it, but we just left and like paid a fee and booked a one-way ticket to Thailand, and we lived in Bangkok for about 8 months. And it was there that we sort of, we suddenly had all this time, and we had some extra money, and like whatever creativity we had was allowed to sort of like come out. And that's when we thought, okay, we'd seen some other digital magazines doing this sort of idea, and we said, okay, let's try to start this. So we did a Kickstarter campaign. It was funded at like $12,000, which we've used to pay our journalists who contribute to us and our photographers. And that was about 9 months ago. We're about to publish our 9th issue.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So did you mention what you were doing prior to the starting the magazine though, as far as like for work?
Yeah, so like in New York, I was just freelancing, and I still am. I'm uh, primarily like that's how I make money. Like Latterly is not making profit yet. So I write for Newsweek. I write for in New York. I was stringing for the New York Times and some other publications. And before that, like I said, I worked. I was a staff writer, so I did like the 9 to 5 thing at newspapers in Florida.
And you gave all that up to go live in Asia.
We had always like her my wife's focus is on refugee law, so and like I've always wanted to, I've always had this dream of being a foreign correspondent. So um, it was like the next step for us to just drop everything and try to make it happen for ourselves abroad. And it worked. Like about a month after we got to Bangkok, I got a job as a sub editor at the Bangkok Post, and she got hired at an NGO there in Bangkok, basically just helping the urban refugees who live there. Then in March, she got hired by the UN Refugee Agency. We moved to the Dominican Republic, and that's where we're talking from now.
And you seem to have really great internet from the Dominican Republic, which I would not expect.
We just realized we were paying like double for the ultra high speed internet, which we probably don't necessarily need, but I'm glad it's working out for this phone call.
Now, with that said, what is ultra high speed internet speeds in the Dominican Republic?
This is like by no means my area of expertise, but it's like 30 megabytes per second.
Megabits per second. Okay,
Is that
it's
fast?
down. Yeah, well, I mean, I got 100 here, so
Okay.
but I would say for a country that's considered a third world country, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, my cell phone probably it could get about 30 meg right this moment, maybe even more than that. But I digress. So once you got started, Ben, you moved to the Dominican Republic. Is that when you started the magazine? Was when you moved to the Dominican Republic?
No, we were still in Bangkok. We were about it was in November. Well, we launched the Kickstarter campaign in October of 2014. And then we moved. We were like 6 or 7 months in when we both moved to the DR.
Now, when you did the Kickstarter, how much money were you looking to get?
We surpassed our goal by 125%. So we got, I think we set our goal at like just shy of $11,000, and we hit like $12,500.
Wow. Well, were you really surprised, or were you just like, I knew we were gonna do it?
Yeah, no, we were like terrified that the whole thing was going to crumble, and that like I'd be paying, because we'd already like put out one issue. Like I paid for it out of pocket. Like I put it on a credit card, and so like if we didn't hit that goal, and we didn't fulfill the goal and collect the money, I was just gonna have to eat it, and the whole thing we wouldn't be here right now. So
It'd be a very expensive one-off.
yeah, exactly.
So once you got the Kickstarter money, what was some of the first steps you took?
Well, publicity and attracting talent. Like I put an ad. There's a website called journalismjobs.com, and journalists tend to check that website obsessively looking for work.
I couldn't imagine why.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So like there's a lot, to my surprise, there are there's like a really big sort of like disconnected community of freelance journalists around the world, and there's not really a forum for them, and there's not like a ton of publications where they can sell their stuff. So we've actually had a pretty consistent mix of pitches from these type of people from around the world, from writers and photographers. So getting the stories was a big concern at the very beginning. Like here we're sitting on 12 grand. We need to like give this to people. Like how are they going to find out about Latterly, and how and who are they going to be good enough? Like are the stories going to be good enough? they've been very like surprising. They've surprised me. Like I wanted to create a magazine that was pretty good, and I'm surprised at how good it is. But yeah, publicity and marketing has been another. That's actually been a really big challenge. Like now we've got this great product. How do we tell people about it? And that's where like sales and marketing come in. And that's like, I'm a journalist. That is way above my pay grade.
That's the big sinkhole that everybody gets stuck in, and it's very difficult unless you get it right away, where you are able to target every single person that would care about what your magazine is bringing to the table. It's difficult. I mean, it's made easier now with like Facebook, and you can like kind of pitch $5 in and like test the image that you have and see see where it goes. But it's still very, very, very difficult and very time consuming.
It's tough to convert because we're not selling any pay-per-click ads or anything. Like our bread and butter is subscribers. And I found that I've done some targeted campaigns on Facebook, and I found that you know people aren't. I don't think that people are on Facebook to like shop or to pull out their credit card. They're there to like hang out with friends. And suddenly I'm throwing a story down their throat that they didn't necessarily want to read. So it's just really hard to find people where they're at the time, in the time and place that they want to read a long, deep, compelling, but relatively long. I mean, these stories I think our longest was like almost 6,000 words. So they're really good, but it's a time investment that people aren't like checking into Twitter for 5 minutes to jump into like while they're at work or whatever.
Right.
So,
No, I agree. I mean, I find myself as like, how many videos do I not watch because
yeah.
it's like 6 a.m. My wife's sleeping next to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been using the save feature, and a lot of times what I find myself doing is with articles that I just can't read right then, I'll just open them up in Safari and leave the tab open, and eventually I'll get back to it.
Do you use Pocket ever? Have you ever tried that?
No, I have no. What is Pocket?
Well, it's basically prevented me. You can download Pocket for like your Chrome browser or your Firefox browser, and when you're on a page that you want to read later, you just click the little Pocket button, and it saves it to your app on your phone. So you can always go back, and so it just gives you this list of stories you can read. And I used to do the tab thing, and I would find myself just like getting frustrated and ending up closing that window because it's just like a billion tabs. So now I don't have any tabs. Now I just have it all in my Pocket app.
No,
I'm not
that's
working.
neat.
I'm not working for Pocket. I don't know what.
Is it a paid app?
No, it's free.
Yeah.
I think they have like a premium thing that you can pay for, but.
Yeah, I used to do things like that with my favorites. I would open up a favorite. I would have like something called like must read or something, like a folder, and I would just drop them into the must read. And as I read them, I would just delete them off. But it's not as straightforward as what sounds like Pocket. So maybe that's the solution for some of the listeners out there that are struggling with this type of too much input and not enough time to digest it all. So, Ben, I got to ask you, when you decided that you were going to move to Asia, how did your family take that?
I had traveled a bit. I'd been to China and Central America, and I think like they knew I studied abroad in England. Like they sort of knew that traveling is something I've always wanted to do. I think like they miss me. I think whenever anyone moves abroad, you gain so much because you're just steeped in cultures and that are completely unfamiliar. You're learning something virtually every day that you couldn't possibly have learned just going through the motions in your hometown or in the United States, which is familiar. But at the same time, you're giving up a close relationship with your family, with a lot of your friends. We've managed to get home as much as possible, but like growing up, my mom, we used to stop at my grandma's house every Sunday. And it's like that sort of thing. Like if we continue this lifestyle, that's something I won't be able to do for my kids if I ever have them.
Yeah, and this is like a little different, but I talking with people that have made the jump to say like move to Disney World, right? Because I know I'm a big Disney fan. You can see the movie head behind me and all that. But people that have made that jump to like move away from wherever they live, go to Disney World. They say this part, and I imagine that it works out pretty well for pretty much anybody. Is okay, so when I lived around the corner from Grandma, now in your case it's a little bit different. I didn't go see Grandma all the time, but now that I live far away and Grandma wants to come down with the other grandkids and my nieces and nephews or whatever, they all come down to Disney World and we spend like a whole week together. And
Yeah.
I can do it where I just do it outside of work. I just go and show up at the parks and we get to spend time, or maybe I take a long weekend or something. But in your case, when you go to home, you're there to see those people, so they're going to make more time for you. And if you added up the time that you spent, it probably isn't that much different than the time that you would be ignoring the fact that you could go visit somebody that lives right down the street.
Yeah, that's true. There's like certainly trade-offs. I always feel like when I go home though, it's just like this crazy whirlwind because there's a list of 20 people I want to really spend quality time with, but I end up, I can only give everyone like 10 minutes or something, like, or an hour or something. I'll get coffee with you on Tuesday and I'll get dinner with you on Wednesday. And meanwhile, my parents are like, "Well, you're out. You come home and then you go and get coffee and dinner with everyone else." So like it's tough. It's just really it's not that easy to do serious quality time. I guess when you go home, maybe a new strategy would be to like meet them in some vacation destination or something like that, or have them come down here. I don't know.
That works too. I mean, meeting people somewhere else instead of home, because then you're forced to hang out with them. Go on a cruise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ben, what's been the biggest roadblock for you so far with getting laterally off the ground?
Well, the marketing thing, like I said, I think there are a ton of people out there who would like these stories, but because it's not a part of their lives right now, and because there's such an investment of time required to determine whether they would like it, and in reading a long form story that might take 45 minutes to finish, it's hard to persuade new people to adopt it and make it a part of their routine. I have not figured out how to do that yet, but we are, we're slowly growing. We have about 160 paid subscribers. We have about 700 free subscribers who get access to one story per month. So, the word's out there, but we're not quite breaking even yet in terms of our monthly expenses versus monthly revenue. I'm hoping we can get there by December, but it's going to take some creative marketing that I have not figured out yet.
Yeah, it's tough to get things to be viral, and in some cases the whole viral thing is a bunch of BS anyway.
It's not like quality. It tends, the stuff that goes viral tends not to be that like intellectually challenging. It's stuff that can be gobbled up real quick and then forwarded to a friend so that they can get some chuckles.
Your lowest common denominator. I mean, that's and that's the thing. So I mean, maybe taking a story and making that complex long form story into like a 20-second video. Mm-hmm. Where you could just click more, and then they can go to the store, because at that point you have their interest. And the people that are really interested are going to click the link to read more about it.
Do you want some pro bono marketing work? I can offer you.
Well, we can talk after the show. We can talk after the show.
I should also say that, like, when I started out doing this, I really expected it to fail after the third issue in January. And then February happened, and then March happened. And I always thought, like, if at some point we like run out of money, we'll just pack it in and I'll just say, well, this has been really fun, and we've created a lot of good work. And to some extent, I still feel that way. Like if Latterly fails tomorrow, I will be so glad about what we've already done. Like I didn't do, this is not an industry you get into if you're trying to get very rich. I started this because I saw that there was a gap in the market. There were stories that weren't being told. There were extremely talented writers and photographers around the world, desperate to tell them. Readers interested in this new globalized world that we're in. What are people in China thinking? What are people in Libya who are getting on these boats to Italy? What's going on in their lives? People are interested in that, so I wanted to just give it a forum, and hopefully people see this and decide this kind of forum is worth supporting.
Ben, it is tough to get people to care about those topics, and that's why, like you said, a lot of times those videos that are really deep are just made for the lowest common denominator, to be like hungry, starving children. Look at this. Okay,
Yeah.
It's the same with the commercials and all that. I mean, marketing it's all BS, but with what you're doing, at least, even if you did pack it in, right? Which is, I feel bad that you felt like, hey, if we get to month 3, oh, hey, month 4 happened. How about that? I just feel like you have an accomplishment and you have a piece of work that could help you get somewhere further. And to go off the whole money thing, when you were saying all that, the only thing I kept thinking of is rich guy that really cares about global issues. And that's what you need to find. You need to tap into somebody that's like, you know what? I'm a humanitarian. I'm going to donate to this because it can spread the word about getting more money filtered into countries and places that need it for different, whether it's medical reasons or whatever the reasons are. You need to find that person.
Yeah, like rich guy with like 50 grand that he can just throw at us, no strings attached. Like, yes,
figure out how to make money when you get there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. For free revenue, it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know how much we're worth. Ben, what was your childhood dream growing up?
I always wanted to be. When I was like 8, I decided that I was going to be an author. And then maybe like 5 or 6 years later, that sort of like matured into this idea that like you can't just be an author. Like, it's really hard to be Ernest Hemingway. You have to, you could write a really good book and it could just flop. And so I realized that a lot of people who were great authors, like Ernest Hemingway, were journalists first. So I thought, okay, well, that's what I need to do. I'm going to be a journalist first. And there was this job opening at the local weekly 3,000 circulation Hartville News, covering high school sports. So I applied for that, and I was hired at 15 to cover high school sports, and I've been writing about the news ever since.
So you do have that book in you still?
It's somewhere. I don't know what it is, but I have some ideas. I won't tell you what they are, but I have some new ideas.
It's quite all right. But the experience that you're getting now just by doing this and running your own business and traveling and living in a country that most people would not even, they barely want to go visit, let alone live in. And if they are visiting, they're visiting a resort, which could be really anywhere. It doesn't have
like
to
Punta
be
Cana. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, why even leave America?
Yeah, go to Florida.
Yeah,
we got beaches.
You have all these experiences, and you can turn those into the book that you were meant to write, and you just have to get those experiences. And it's cool that you looked into it deep enough because you were passionate enough about the idea that I want to be a writer. I want to write this book. And just live off that one book forever and ever and ever.
But, exactly.
It doesn't happen for everybody. And I'm sure it was a lot easier when there was a heck of a lot less writers out in the world.
Yeah, everyone is a writer now. It's like it takes a lot to stand apart. But it's writing, to me, it's still one of these, like, it's one of the last real meritocracies, I think. Like, if you are a good writer and you are connecting with people, they're gonna latch onto that, and you're gonna rise to the top.
I would agree. Quality always wins out, as my man Walt said.
Yeah, exactly.
Ben, what do your dreams for the future look like?
Well, I have some new ideas with Latterly to expand it, that I haven't released yet, but I'd like to. latterly has been pretty successful, and I'd like to keep doing that, even if it can't be a full-time job for me. I think it's worthwhile. I'd like to start, meanwhile, investing more in telling the stories that I want to tell, not necessarily caring about, whether a publisher wants it, whether an editor is going to bite. If it's a story that I want to do, I'm going to start doing just like going there and start reporting it and just telling it. And if it's good enough, someone will buy it later. There are a lot of journalists who operate that way, and that's the way I kind of want to operate. After 2 years, my wife's contract is up in the DR, and she'll apply for a new posting with UNHCR somewhere else in the world. So next time we talk, maybe it will be back in Bangkok or somewhere else. Who knows?
Oh, the adventure is out there, man, and to have a job that's willing to bring you somewhere, you and your wife somewhere to cover. I mean, that's awesome, because there's so many writers out in the world. They could just as easily get anybody that already lives there to just do it.
Yep.
So recognize how fortunate you and your wife are to be able to live that experience.
Yeah, thank you. It's been very fun.
Ben, before we get to how people can connect with you and how they can get subscribed up for Latterly, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share?
We're in this really interesting time where if you have some idea that is kind of like bursting out of you, something that you just feel like you have to create, like you can do it. Like with crowdfunding and with social media marketing and just like the ease of ideas spreading and the willingness of people, especially in our generation, to support ideas that they think are good by chipping in like $3 or $4. Like you actually can create more or less anything you want if the crowd finds it worthy. So just try it.
No, I'd agree. I mean, that's why I self-published my own book exactly the way that I wanted to do it, and not be like, oh man, how do I write this book so that somebody will buy it, so that other people will buy it? And hopefully I'm able to get my own people to go and buy it, so that I can prove to the person that bought it in the first place that I was worth doing it to do it a second time.
Yeah, right, exactly.
A lot of that, it reminds me of like politics, right? It's like, what's your first goal as soon as you get in office? To start running for office in 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta start campaigning for 4 years from now. So it's the same exact principle.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame, because you should be worried about creating and being inspiring other people to do something that's different, and just you don't realize that necessarily what you're creating is going to inspire somebody else to do something that is totally different, totally out left field from what you did, but it just put that idea in there. It made them see something in a light that they didn't happen to notice before.
Yeah, creativity. It inspires other creativity.
It's contagious.
Yep.
I think that's what you meant to say.
Yep.
Ben, how can people connect with you and get subscribed up for Latterly?
So if you just go to latterlymagazine.com, you can buy a subscription. You can sign up for a free subscription. You could just sign up for a newsletter. If you're a writer, if you're a journalist somewhere in the world, you can pitch us a story. Even if you've never written a story before, I've worked with new writers. You could just email us at hello@latterlymagazine.com.
Very cool. And how much does that cost to get subscribed?
Right. Good question. It's $3 per month for a subscription, or $8 every 3 months.
Oh man, that's like nothing.
It's like practically free.
There
are no.
It is.
That's another principle of digital publishing. It can be a lot. You can deliver the same quality of journalism without asking people to pay $20 for an independent printed magazine on like really expensive paper. We can publish this stuff extremely cheaply.
Now, when they get their subscription, is it through email, or is it through like what's the app on the iPhone and iPad, newspaper or something?
Newsstand.
Newsstand.
Yeah, it comes in through Newsstand. You can read, if you have. We only have an iOS app right now, so if you have an iPhone, you can read our stories on our app, or you can just simply go to your web browser, and when you log in, you'll have access behind our paywall to see our stories.
Now, with that said, you're releasing the whole issue once a month, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like our ninth issue, our July issue, is coming out on Monday. It's going to have a story from Srebrenica about the massacre. It's the 20th anniversary of that Bosnian War genocide. We also have a story from Tibet. We have a story about Tibetan prisoners. It's a photo story. And there's one other story that is completely... Oh, a story about a homicide investigation in Missouri. And so when you subscribe, you'll have access to all three of those stories.
And how do you spell latterly? Because it sounds like ladder, like the thing climb up, but it's not.
Yeah, it's a word that's used mostly in England. Latt as in Tom, ERLY.
Latterly, like laterly.
Yeah, it means the exact same thing as lately.
Oh.
but the Brits like to say latterly.
Have you found any trouble with that as far as people finding you because they're typing in the other ladder?
That's a good question. I'll never know. The Brits have no problem.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today, and I'd love to have you on again at some point to follow up on how everything's been going for you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.